Hey everyone, welcome to the Pixel Pub. Today I wanted to answer all of your questions about streaming computers, content creating computers, gaming PCs, and everything else that you guys have been asking me about in my comments. If you haven't noticed, I've been not creating quite as many videos as I usually do because I've been working on two absolutely massive PC building projects that hopefully you're gonna be seeing soon, but it still might be a couple of weeks. So wanted to do something just to get you some information out there, get you my thoughts, and answer your questions. So today we are going through all of the comments. Okay, maybe not all of the comments, but most of the comments that I've received in about the last month or so, especially when they pertain to PC building and streaming PCs. So grab your drink. This is going to be a good one. Cheers. All right, so our first question comes in from Lone Star Civilian. Great video. Question though, is the Ryzen 9 9900X3D, as I assume what you were trying to say there, paired with the Radeon 9070X XT GPU good? Is this good enough for streaming while gaming? Honestly, this is about as good as it gets. The 9070 XT GPU is as good as it gets, with the 9000 series of the AMD GPUs being so much better with their video encoders that you should be good with those no matter what you're trying to do. A lot of people really still like the NVIDIA video encoders, but the AMD video encoders have gotten absolutely fantastic. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. Honestly, if anything, that CPU is probably a little bit overkill for what you're trying to do. I think that, again, the 9900X is probably like $100 cheaper and probably just about as good, probably as good as anybody's going to notice. But if that extra $100 isn't an issue and you want to future-proof this PC even more and get even more gaming performance out of that X3D architecture, then go for it. This is going to be an absolute monster for streaming and gaming. Now, there are a lot of questions in my comments about different CPU and GPU combos, mostly because I have made a couple of videos talking about some of the best combos. Make sure that you check out those videos on my profile, whether it's the best CPU and GPU combos, whether it's the best CPUs to pair with a specific GPU, like the 5060 Ti, like the 5070. I've got a bunch of videos on my channel like that. If you're interested in just seeing all of those in one place, check those videos out. But otherwise, our next question comes in from Lousy Z2. Would you say that the Ryzen 9 9900X is a good in-between for streaming, gaming, and editing? And just like the question before, where I actually recommended probably the 9900X over the 9900X3D, I think it's a great CPU. I'm definitely a fan of everything that AMD has been doing in the last generation here. The 9000 series and the CPUs and the GPUs are all really great. So love to see those things. If you want to go team AMD, I have zero problems recommending them at this point. Traditionally on this channel, I have recommended a lot of Intel and NVIDIA. That being because they've always just been a little bit better for the price as far as productivity apps typically go. If you are only wanting a gaming PC, go for AMD. If you want a productivity PC, typically, and honestly in the last generation here, NVIDIA and Intel has actually kind of been cheaper for that better performance. But if you have to go Team Red, if you want an AMD CPU or GPU, there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with this generation. The next question comes in from Kago the Gamer, 7600X or the 9800X3D for streaming. Now, these CPUs are not something I typically compare next to each other. They are very different. For the power to performance, I would probably recommend the 7600. It's not going to be the absolute most powerful top of the end CPU, but if you're just playing a lot of those esports titles, if you're playing Fortnite, League of Legends, Rocket League, Counter-Strike, Valorant, those types of games, the 7600X is probably going to have enough power to get that done and not have any worries, especially for the price difference. You can find that 7600X for probably like 150 bucks, where the 9800X 3D is sitting on the opposite end of the spectrum at close to $500 for the most part. That is obviously going to be the better CPU, going to be more powerful, going to have more cores, going to be able to get you more frames in your game, on your stream, all that kind of stuff. But for the price difference, I don't know. You have to kind of figure out that way if it is worth it for you. If you want to do a lot of stuff, a lot of extra applications running, if you want to have a lot of things going on, if you want to be running over 200, 300 frames per second, you might want to consider that 9800X 3D. But if that's kind of that's a really big price range there. So you got to pick the performance for the price that you're able to pay for stuff. All right, we've got another great question here from Flashy Run 0168. Another CPU and GPU combo question. The Ryzen 7 9800X 3D, will it work with the RTX 5060 Ti? Is there going to be any kind of bottleneck with that? Now, again, unless you are playing one of those esports titles at absolutely lowest settings possible and trying to get as many frames as possible, unless you're trying to get multiple hundreds of frames a second, there is probably going to be a little bit of a GPU bottleneck here. If you're looking to play AAA games, probably won't notice much at 1080p, but once you bump up to 1440p, that's where you're probably going to start noticing it. Now, the 5060 Ti, I would definitely recommend the 16 gigabyte model with the 9800X 3D if that's the route that you want to go with. But honestly, it depends on what you're trying to do here. If you're trying to game on those AAA games at 1440p or 4K and get some really, really nice looking graphics, I would swap the price a little bit, tone down the CPU a little bit, maybe a 9700X, something along those lines, or even a 7800X 3D if you can find one at a decent price, and bump the graphics card up a little bit. Go with a 5070 Ti, maybe even wait for those super cards to come out, and get a little bit more graphics power for your dollar. But again, esports titles, super, super high FPS. This is going to be actually probably a really good combo. All right, the next question actually comes from Mario2988. Actually on a video where I did an unboxing and kind of first impressions on the Corsair Toolkit. And one of the things that I absolutely loved the most about this is the fidget spinner top on it. Like, it's really good. It's really satisfying. Like, I could just do this all day. But his question was, will I be able to get stripped screws out with this thing? So unfortunately, there's no specific tool, there's no specific bit in here for helping to get stripped screws out. The one thing that it does do is it does come with a lot of bits. So it does come with, lots of flathead bits. It comes with every kind of size of like Phillips screwdriver head that you would ever want. So there are a lot that are, a lot thinner. There are a lot of bits that are a lot thicker. So some of those that are like wider and more flat on top can definitely help get into some of those strip screws. Definitely help you versus just having very, very pointy Phillips head screws. But I definitely honestly recommend this. This is probably my go-to kit right now for building, just with all of these bits. Is so amazing. This is a fantastic kit. I use this a lot for all the different modding things we do. I've done a lot of modding on my Asus ROG Ally, on the Mod Retro Chromatic, on my Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Color cartridges. Again, you can see all those videos here on my channel. Absolutely love this kit, but unfortunately it does not come with something specifically to get stripped screws out. Let's move right along here. This is another streaming question, something that we get a lot, asking about what are the download and upload speeds that you need to stream to platforms like Twitch and YouTube. There's a pretty easy way to look at it, and really for the most part, whatever you set your bitrate at within OBS is really the speed that you need to run. That is what OBS is trying to send out. OBS is trying to send out, if you have it set to like the default of 6,000, that's 6,000 kilobits per second. So 6,000 kilobits is 6 megabits per second. So as long as you theoretically have a 6 megabit per second upload speed, you should be able to stream at 6,000 kilobits. Now, Twitch specifically recommends 30% over that. So if your bit rate is set to 6,000 kilobit per second, that math equals out to about 7.8 megabits per second. So as long as you have something around that or over that, you should be fine streaming. But it always depends on everything else that you're trying to do at the same time. So download speed really plays no part in anything you're doing while you're streaming. That is solely a gaming thing. That is solely a content creation, whatever you're trying to do. When it comes to physically streaming, the only thing you really need to worry about is your upload speed. Now, obviously, the faster that upload speed is, the better time that you're going to have. You can always lower your bit rate down a little bit if you're having troubles. That is going to lower the quality of your stream, though. So definitely one of those things to keep in mind. Heading right back to the CPU and GPU combos, we've got a question from Kenny Z Art. What about the i9 14900K and a 5070? Honestly, I think this is a fantastic combo. Definitely for streaming, content creation, video editing, and gaming at the same time. This is an amazing combo. This is going to have plenty of CPU power with plenty of GPU power to go along with it. All the way up into that 1440p. Honestly, I think the 5070 is a very strong 1440p card and can probably dabble in the 4K area if you're interested in that. But definitely at 1080p, 1440p, this is a fantastic combo. Now, we also had another comment under that from Slossage17 that for the 1490 they recommend getting a 5090 for the graphics card. Now, I've mentioned the 5090 in quite a few of my videos at this point. Honestly, I don't recommend the 5090 to anybody if you're gaming. There is almost zero reason to spend that much money for the little bit of extra performance you get over something like the 5080. 5090 is just way too expensive unless you are using it for professional means and your professional business is paying for that card. I just can't recommend it to anybody. So upgrading to a 5080, I think would be another fantastic upgrade that would push you well into the 4K territory as far as gaming, streaming, and content creation goes. But I think the 5070 is a fantastic card if you want to save a little bit on that budget. Thank you for the amazing question, Traplord. Do you think the i5 12400F is good enough for the RTX 5070 Ti, specifically for 1440p gaming? When we're talking about just gaming, I think the i5 lineup of processors is about as good as it gets. You probably don't need much more. The i5 12400F is on the low end of that for sure. It's an older processor, but honestly still should be fine for most of your gaming. As soon as you bump the resolution up to 1440p or 4K, you are a lot less dependent on your CPU. The 12400K or 12400F should keep up just fine. I personally probably wouldn't go for the 12400F. I probably like the 12600 a little bit better, get a few more cores, just feel a little bit more comfortable with that. But honestly, any of those 12th generation and up, you should be good as far as solely gaming goes. We've got an amazing question from Ograzera. Which processor do you recommend to anyone who uses DaVinci? Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the question. I personally also use DaVinci, and I have used 2 versions of DaVinci Resolve, which actually make a pretty big difference in my recommendation here. So DaVinci Resolve will use a lot more of your CPU for encoding the video. DaVinci Resolve Studio, the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, uses GPU encoding, which makes the GPU choice matter a whole lot more than the CPU choice. Honestly, when you're using the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, the CPU matters a heck of a lot less. I would recommend an Intel processor. Intel processors just tend to be better with productivity as well as DaVinci specifically, which is another thing that if you're wondering specifically about an application, video editing application that you use, go online, go on YouTube. There are people that have done benchmark tests for every application out there, for every kind of CPU. And for the most part, DaVinci works a little bit better with Intel processors. If you can get something within at least an i7, again, having those extra cores, DaVinci is able to utilize all of those. I would probably recommend an i7 14700K would probably be my go-to, at least for the free version of DaVinci Resolve. That will be fine as far as rendering times and things go. I used the i9 12900K for a very long time, and I had no issues with the rendering times and speeds of DaVinci Resolve. But as soon as I upgraded to the studio version, it didn't matter what CPU I had. My GPU was taking care of it. All of my speeds cut by like 2/3. So much faster now. But right now in my personal PC, I do have the i7 14700K, and it is working way better than I could ever hope for it to do. So hopefully that helps answer the question, or at least get you started in the right direction for DaVinci Resolve. IOUS5Y asked the question, i5 14400F versus the Ryzen 5 9600X, which is better for streaming? Honestly, if I was going to just be gaming, I'd probably go with the 9600F. You're going to have a little bit less cost for very similar power on that one, at least single core performance. But for streaming, video editing, and gaming, I'd probably lean towards Intel. Intel is just better at most of those productivity types of things. The extra cores that you're getting from the 14400F are going to come in really handy when you're streaming. So that's definitely the way that I would go. We've got another GPU question from El Pitudo El Vergudo. Will a 5080 paired with an i9 12900K, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1000 watt PSU work okay? My previous GPU, a 3090, was a 3090, but it seems that it started to fail on me. Rest in peace, the 3090 is such an amazing graphics card. I could not replace it with another 3090 or 4090 because they are way too expensive. 100% agree. They are way too expensive to try to buy right now, unless you can find something you can trust on the used market for a decent price. I would definitely upgrade to something like a 5080. I have 2 4K monitors that I've got hooked up. So definitely running at 4K, you should have zero problems with the 5080 and the i9 12900K combination. Both of those are very, very high class components in their own right. And at 4K, your GPU is going to be doing most of the work anyways. So again, depending on exactly which games you're playing, you could see varied results, but you still shouldn't have any problems. I can't imagine that you're going to say, man, I wish that I had upgraded my CPU. Everything should perform just fine. But the more graphic intense the game gets, the less that you're going to wish that you upgraded your CPU. You should be just fine. A little bit different of a question coming from Elsa Garcia 6216. Hi, I hope you see this message because I am struggling. Well, I am here to help. Hopefully we can figure this out for you. I downloaded the NVIDIA app, and when I clicked it, it says that the NVIDIA graphics card was not detected. What does this mean? Now, this is tough. So there's a couple of things that this could be. The first thing I would check is if you just built this or something has shifted, something has moved, I would check the physical status of the graphics card. Take it out of the PCIe slot, put it back in, see if that fixes it. Make sure that the power is plugged in and those power cables have not come loose. Just make sure that physically this card is okay. If you're still getting the same types of errors, if it's still not being detected, then it's trying to figure out, is the graphics card still actually working? Do you have any other computers that you can plug it into? See if it's recognized on those. Again, if it is recognized on those, then it might just be something else going on with your computer. And again, at that point, can we plug in a different GPU into your computer? Does it recognize that one or does it not recognize any at all? Then we have to figure out, is that a software issue? Is that a hardware issue? But that's probably my troubleshooting steps that I would go through for something like this. So hopefully just reseating that graphics card, putting it back into the PCIe slot, will get it to recognize it. Hopefully there's just a misconnection there somewhere. Putting it back in will solve that issue for you. But hopefully that helps and you get your graphics card working again. Mr. Sleep 18 doesn't really have a question, more of just a statement that I wholeheartedly agree with. Wish I had a Micro Center in my area. My broke self wouldn't buy anything, but looking at all the PC stuff would make me feel like a kid at a candy store. I 100% agree. Living close to a proximity of a Micro Center is amazing. I also tell myself on a regular basis that I'm not going to buy anything. Hey Google, remind me that I should go buy my wife some flowers tomorrow morning. We've got another CPU GPU combo question from a name that I'm absolutely going to butcher. Heitor TX Sierra 9333. What about the Ryzen 7 5700X? Good combo with the 5070. Please, just for future reference, everybody, when you are asking about a combo and if it's good or not, make sure you specify what you're trying to do with it. That's what makes this whole process much more difficult, because there isn't just a best combo. It depends on what you're trying to do, what games you're trying to run, what resolution screen you're trying to use, what settings in the game you're trying to use. Are you trying to stream or not? I get these types of questions all the time, but I need them to be clarified with what you're trying to do. So for gaming, honestly, pretty good combo, especially when you're reaching into 1440p and the CPU becomes a little bit less important and the graphics card becomes more important. 1440p is going to shine with this combo. Once you get in, if you're trying to run some of those more esports focused titles with the low graphical settings, the high FPS, that's where you might see some of the most struggle. You might be getting the exact same FPS in Valorant at low settings on 1080p as you are in Borderlands 4 at 1440p at medium settings. Okay, maybe not Borderlands 4, but insert the next best AAA game out there right now. This is probably not a combo that I would recommend for streaming and gaming at the same time, or video editing, content creation as a whole. It's just the Ryzen 7 5700X is definitely an aging processor and just doesn't have some of the same power that you might see out of a similarly priced Intel CPU. Why go for Intel when AMD is better? Well, I already explained this a little bit earlier in the video, but I think what a lot of people don't realize when they come to my channel is that I talk mainly about streaming, gaming, and content creation computers. And when you're talking about productivity, when you're talking about everything else outside of gaming, Intel is better, right? For gaming specifically, I give AMD the win almost every single time. But for everything else besides gaming, Intel typically has a little bit of the edge. Now, this question from Fuchilla came on a short of mine of the new Montech HyperFlow digital 240mm AIO that I installed on my personal computer. In the short, I talked about how I originally installed the CPU cooler upside down. Because unfortunately, Montech has created the software to be as lightweight, bloat-free as possible so that it's not taking any resources from your gaming and streaming as possible, which is something I'm a huge fan of. I don't like hardware that has its included software in the first place. So the fact that Montech made this as simple as possible is actually a blessing in disguise for me. It was pretty easy to flip the CPU cooler over, but is this a Temu cooler? It's not. It is pretty cheap though. It is only $99 for the 240mm AIO and $119 for the 360. Honestly, with the 240 on my 14700K, I've been getting really great temperatures. Most of this time sitting in the low 30s. Honestly, no matter what I'm doing. So I absolutely love this thing. It comes with a Temu price, but definitely a high-end performance on this thing. And of course, from ShipLug, we've got the comment, simply flip the whole PC over. And if only I would have thought about that before I flipped the CPU cooler over. It would have been so much easier. We've got another bitrate question coming in from, I think, Mesa Cini. I have a brand new beast of a PC with a 5090, 166 megabyte upload speeds. Could not stream for anything as it kept buffering though. How do I know what bitrate to set this at? Cheers. I've also got a Core Ultra 9 285K processor. Absolute beast of a computer. Now, obviously, we don't have the full specs if you're still running a spinning platter hard drive, or if you've only got 8 gigabytes of RAM to go with these things. That is not helping our case, but we're just going to assume for the sake of this question that the rest of the PC is as spec'd out as the GPU and CPU here. So what should we be doing with the bitrate? Well, first off, if you aren't a Twitch partner and have access to all of their extra features, everybody is capped at a bitrate of 6,000. So start there with a bitrate of 6,000. Now, we talked about how to calculate bitrates before. So at a bitrate of 6,000, theoretically, you should only need about a 7.8 megabit upload speed, which according to you, the 166 megabyte with the capital B there, 166 megabyte upload speed should be absolutely plenty to be able to stream 6,000 kilobit per second from OBS to Twitch. Now, if you're still experiencing issues, this is where I would go and open up the view stats panel on OBS and see if you're actually dropping frames. If your stream is lagging, if it's buffering on Twitch, the circle is spinning. If there's something, if it's stuttering and you're only getting a few frames per second, that's typically network related. So again, run a speed test. Make sure you're plugged in via Ethernet. And make sure that nothing else is using, as little amount of things are using your internet connection as possible to make sure that you have as much of that bandwidth open to your stream as possible. If your stream is grainy, if it looks a little bit, blurry, but you're not actually stuttering, that typically implies some sort of hardware issue, hardware restriction, hardware bottleneck going on. But again, with those specs, I don't think that's probably what you're experiencing. Let's round these CPU and GPU recommendations out with two more. We've got Cinematic Verse 101. My build is with the Ryzen 9 9900X and a 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte GPU. Is this a good combo? Again, I need a little bit of context. Probably overkill on the CPU if all you're doing is gaming. But Honestly, really great combo, I think, for streaming, for video editing, for doing all of that. Thank you for clarifying that it is at least the 16 gigabyte model of the 5060 Ti. That really should be the only one that you're looking at if you are looking at a 5060 Ti. And lastly, the ONB verse asked the question, for gameplay recording and streaming and editing, which is better, the Ryzen 7 7700X or the i5 14600K? And this one honestly is pretty easy for me. The Intel wins when it comes to video editing, when it comes to streaming, when it comes to productivity tasks. Just because the power difference of these two CPUs, because of the core difference for your CPUs. Every application that you have open can utilize one of those different cores. So having more of those is just going to be better for productivity, better for streaming, better for running Spotify and Discord and OBS and all those other applications at the same time. And honestly, I think it's a little bit cheaper for me right now. At least it was when I went and looked at this comment the first time and grabbed it. And we've got one more question coming in from Pontiac's Garage. Why not just buy a laptop? This is in reference to my Beer Box cooler built gaming computer sponsored by Garage Beer and Cordova Outdoors Coolers. Some of these parts were also provided by Montech as well as Patriot Viper. This PC is absolutely insane. It's got a Ryzen 7 9800X3D. It's got the Radeon 9070 XT Steel Legend from ASRock. 64 gigabytes of RAM from Patriot Viper, a 2 terabyte NVMe solid state drive. Absolutely insane that this is all inside of this cooler. So I filmed a short the other day where I plugged it into my Jackery power bank and was testing how long this thing would last on my battery bank. And it was looking like 2 to 2.5 hours of some gaming time on there. Probably a lot more if I was just browsing the internet. And honestly, that makes this a fully enclosed portable gaming computer, gaming monster. So why not just buy a laptop at that point? Well, to be fair, you find a laptop that is as powerful as a 9800X3D with a 9070 XT in it. And I will take that battle that my battery is going to last a lot longer than yours. But outside of that, this is really just for the fun of it. I called up the guys at Garage Beer and asked them if they wanted to do this. And they were like, heck yeah, that sounds like fun. And I said, heck yeah, that sounds like fun. So we did live stream building most of this. So you can see that on my channel if you want to click on one of those videos. But make sure that you stick around. You're going to want to subscribe and you're going to want to check out my Instagram channel because we are going to eventually be giving this computer in a cooler away as well. Cheers, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.